So yeah, just as to follow up on James's intro first. So I'm Josh. I'm the Principal Account Director over at Mapp. Mapp are a cloud-based solution offering kind of digital comms, from email through to mobile push. And then we're really about bringing insights and data and then actioning those data points as well. So as James mentioned, I do look after Pepsi. I am on the other side of the waters over here based in London in the UK. So hopefully I can give you a little bit of a spin about what's happening on this side of the Atlantic as well. But also I have tailored this presentation based upon the kind of US market as well. I do look after PepsiCo across Europe in terms of some of their brands from Lay's to kind of Tropicana, big kind of breakfast brands like Quaker, Mountain Dew, as well as Pepsi itself. So I have obviously some engaged perspective looking after fashion retail for global accounts, as well as TNT and FedEx as well.
Josh, just to jump in there quickly, the screen, your screen is very pixelated. I wonder if you could maybe unshare and reshare.
Yeah, let me do that. I'll do that now. How about that, guys? Is that any better?
That looks much better. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Let me just get rid of myself on this side of my screen. Okay, great. Sorry about that, guys. So yeah, this is going to be our agenda today. We've got our COVID-19 landscape and what this looks like. Top digital strategies already implemented by some successful brands. And we're also going to have a little look at 7 brands in the US kind of doing this well at the moment as well. How will businesses win post-COVID-19? And what does post-COVID-19 really mean to brands and to marketers and to consumers alike? And then, as I mentioned, we've got these kind of takeaways in the brand survey and digital strategies playbook that you guys will be able to take and hopefully find value from as well. Cool. So as we know, back in March time, this kind of affected, it's obviously a global pandemic. So this has affected every market. And we turned from this kind of world of we're always here, we're always open to, sorry, we're now closed. So I'm not teaching you anything new. We know that's the kind of starting point. This is a picture of your famous Times Square in New York. And this is the kind of world that had just immediately kind of overnight changed into. So from that kind of bustling high street and bustling kind of e-commerce and offline world that we're in this kind of world where, again, there's that paradigm shift to kind of the new normal as it is now. And today we are still in this kind of world where actually we're putting more 3/4 on the right-hand side than we are to being a fully open economy again. And if we are open, there's a lot of kind of different social distancing, new rules and things which we are all having to abide by as well. So this is the kind of state of players we're in, and obviously we all know that as well. So what has that changed to consumers? So consumers were used to obviously referencing kind of Google Maps to how long will it take me to drive to this location and trying to beat the traffic in the morning commute, to using our smartphones, using our apps to try and get those essential goods in. Whether you could pick up a delivery slot was especially in the UK, it was like gold dust. It was trying to get those type of approaches. So consumers' behavior and the tools and the channels that we're using to do this has completely shifted as a result here as well. And this is just some kind of setting the scene of kind of what's happened in the US landscape. Everything that I kind of talk around is all referenced at the bottom of the slides, and obviously I'll share the presentation afterwards with you guys as well. So by all means, don't have to write notes on this, you'll get all the content and copy. But yeah, looking at a few different resources, this was actually from an FT report, looking at kind of the decline in different sectors as well. So in April, 14.6% decline in all spending, excluding kind of automotive industry. So this means that it's kind of affected all industries at some point. So I don't think any of us here today can say that COVID has not affected our business or the way we would have chosen to live in the last few months as well. However, May time across the US has seen some green shoots of economic recovery. So when I say there's that kind of only 5.6% decline in sales, that's still a stratospheric number and billions of revenue of dollars less. But yeah, it is a massive kind of shift from where it was, but it has started to kind of pick up there as well. There have been sectors that have been kind of positively influenced, and you've seen this in a lot of the data and kind of share as well, that home improvement, obviously e-commerce pure players, for instance, online, grocery sales have sometimes offset some of the weaker, more luxury, frivolous goods like jewelry or expensive clothing, or whatever that may be as well. And as people have had time on lockdown to be able to kind of spend times with their families, remain indoors, there have been these kind of markets who have been boosted from that. And you can see that with the US hardware sales, online and in-store rising 36% year over year throughout May, furniture sales again rising. So there are these kind of green shoots of recovery for certain markets, but again, that won't offset. We are reliant upon those kind of users visiting for that revenue as well. And this has also created this kind of consumer shift. So where America and US was in 2019, 11% of all sales and revenue dollar was done online. So the e-commerce sales were 11% of the mix 2019. That has now for April and May shifted up to 22% of all spend. So there has been this shift across into a different kind of way that consumer is occurring, and there's also that kind of push to local as well. So if we haven't been able to buy things online and get that home delivery or curbside pickup, whatever it may be now as well, we have got this kind of local economy and kind of thought to always shop local as well. Some latest stats out of some of the kind of big brand names, which you guys will all recognize. Kohl's CEO saying that each week their store is open, their sales are increasing. So initially they experienced a 50% decline week over week in sales, but after 2-3 weeks of opening, that's now a 25% decrease year over year. And their CEO is kind of encouraged by the improvement that they're seeing across their store network. And this comes with that sense of kind of community as well. People want to support their businesses as a result and try and get back to that normality of shopping. This was actually picked up today from one of the FT sources, and this is just showing the US landscape now across all the 50 states. And we are in some form of reopening mode. So this is now prevalent. If you looked at this map, let's say 6 weeks ago, there'd be shades of green, shades of red, different types of opening as well. So this is really the landscape where we're looking at it now. But with that, I'm sure you guys have all seen the news. There has been spikes in certain territories and certain markets of COVID cases. This is just looking at Florida and Oklahoma, and just seeing how independent state law has really changed and had a massive impact upon the cases rate and also the ways that businesses can get back to being open in their respective territories. But then again, we have these different kind of states here, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, where again, they've managed to keep the COVID levels low due to, maybe that's the population density, all of these different types of things. So as brand marketers, we've really got to think about how we can tailor our strategies to different states, to the ways that lockdown laws are being told through different markets as well, and different impacts on consumers as well. Here we are looking at it from a kind of a revenue perspective, so a bit of a breakdown. This is from one of the online kind of stats journals, because there's not so much kind of May-June data out there yet in terms of e-commerce effects. But again, we can see that certain sectors that have had massive impacts based upon the kind of COVID situation. So again, kind of gasoline, less travel, you can see how again that has really dropped off as a result of the need to stay local. And then all the different markets accordingly as well. Here's a nice little report, which I don't think you guys might have seen. It's from one of our partners that we work with here at Mapp, but this was looking at their kind of client set and purely for e-commerce businesses online. So this takes it back to the 4th of March and then runs through to the 22nd of kind of end of April time. And this looks at 100% being your average week of revenues, so prior to COVID. And then how different markets and different areas have been affected with their revenues year over year. And as we can see here, the orange line is North America's, and this has kind of gradually increased throughout COVID for e-commerce businesses to an average of just under 150% of year over year turnover. So that means there has been this shift to e-commerce type businesses, but within that, there has been obviously a disparate effect. So some retailers, let's say like toys and children's kind of entertainment, those markets might have had 450% growth week over week. But obviously things like travel and hospitality have been at around about 20% of that average as well. So as an overall economy or an e-commerce online economy, what we're seeing is actually there's been that move to or shift to spending on that e-commerce way. And some of the tactics I'm going to focus on today will be about harnessing that demand. And then also, what does that demand mean in a post-COVID world as well? Cool, so I'm just going to launch the first poll, I think, firstly, just to get some impact from yourself. So I'm just going to ask this question here. Hopefully you guys can see it on screen. In what areas of digital marketing do you wish you had strong capability to cope with the current situation? And we've got some options here of customer insights, strategy, marketing automation, e-commerce, advertising, creative. None we're fully prepared, which some businesses prepare for every scenario, which is applaudable. But yeah, I just want to get some kind of market expectations here as well. So I'll leave this open for about 20 to 30 seconds long. I really appreciate you guys kind of filling this in from your perspective. You can select more than one if appropriate as well. So I'll give it another 10 seconds. I'll end the poll and then we can all have a little talk through of these results as well. 5 more seconds. Thanks, guys. I'll end that one there. Cool. So hopefully you guys can now see these results. So it's quite in line with kind of what we've been seeing here at Mapp with some of our customers as well. So a lot of brands are saying that they would really like to have a little bit more handle on their customer insights and tools that they have available to them to be able to have navigated a little bit more around some of the personalized communications that could have happened as a result of COVID. And as a result of those insights, that marketing automation piece, with people on furlough schemes and kind of obviously there's been a rise in unemployment and I'm sure it's affected many businesses there as well. Workload pressures have really hit marketing managers. I've seen from definite UK teams, they've gone very, very thin. So there's been a lot of pressure, and for those businesses that have had marketing automation have been able to kind of some of as well. So yeah, a few of the key ones here: customer insights, a little bit help on strategy. Hopefully we can help a little bit with that today, and some of the marketing automation pieces, and then some of the other ones there as well. Cool. We'll be doing one more poll a little bit later on today as well. So I'm just going to focus on digital strategies that have helped some clients in recent months, some of which you guys might have been doing, and then if not, some of these might still be appropriate in this time we have now as well. So this is 4 actions that have addressed immediate customer needs. So the first thing that a lot of brands did was focus on care and support. So making a priority of not only their customers as an external, but also their employees and their internal community. So that community can be very local as well. And you've seen a lot of kind of ethical brand values coming out as well. And also this kind of repositioning of brands. And obviously the political landscape that we're in, the kind of the Black Lives Matter movement, all of these types of things are creating a kind of strain on brands at the moment as to how do we position ourselves to not be taking advantage of situations or being seen in a certain way. And that means that a lot of companies have gone back to their basics of their core company values and been able to kind of re-give those kind of sense of purpose. So it's focus on care and support. We're a brand that cares for you. We want to help. We want to improve the situation. We want to deliver your goods on the right timing. We're trying to get there. This kind of empathetic approach to marketing has been a way that brands have come back and got some real kind of empathy with consumers. Consumers don't mind if a good has not arrived for 5 days. If you just explain the situation, that there's delays in supply chain, we're doing our best. If they don't know anything, then they call your call centers and get irate. But these are the types of things. So brands that have been able to identify those users who are in that situation, focus on care and support, will win in the long term, because everyone knows that COVID has had a massive impact on every business. If we can be real and true to ourselves and say why this has impacted us in such a way, and it's not a kind of a poor me story as a brand, it's much more kind of open, and yes, we are trying our best, we're going to get there, then you'll see a really positive response back on social and all these different means that customers can address to us as well. What we have also been having to do is meet the customers where they are. As you've seen, I'm sure some of your businesses have done the same, this kind of innovative digital models. So you'll see that now, especially in some of the businesses that I was looking at, this kind of Cool is when we're at your store and we drop it straight into your car. This kind of going over and above customer service options, expanding home delivery, obviously the contactless operations as well. This has really changed kind of the approach to our customers. While we're doing this as brands, we still have to try and reimagine this post-COVID-19 world. And we're going to get there a little bit later as well. So we are migrating customers to digital channels where we can to save money, boost satisfaction if possible. And we also realize that economic hard times, and I read a report today that 24% of users who do have expendable income are actually saving their money at this time because they're very uncertain in this world. So people who do even have money maybe over and above what they had pre-COVID times, because they might not be doing so much childcare or they might not be doing so much travel to work, they might actually have a little bit more expendable income if we're fortunate still to be working. So there are consumers out there who are on that end who have more money than they ever have done, while there are also times where there are a lot of people in severe pain and strife. So as brands, we really need to identify these users who are in these kind of different extremes and then adjust our brand strategy accordingly. And as we have seen, that brands have been able to adapt quite quickly, and I'm sure you're getting this as well, with streamlined teams, less people in the business, less decision makers maybe as well. Companies have been able to react really quickly to customer feedback, whether that be through social media, whether that be a personal email to a CEO. There are different kind of ways that customers are getting in touch, and companies have really adjusted their ways that they're working in rapid timescales to do things here as well. In the UK market, a lot of our, let's say, finance clients did a lot of offline and were reliant on offline in-branch activity. What we have seen, that would have been normally 90% of all mortgages or loan requests would have had to be done in a physical branch. What we've seen now is that 95% of those things have still been able to happen, but in a completely digital world. So we have just seen this complete extrapolation and real quick digital transformation. And people are saying what would have taken 3-5 years for these businesses to realize has happened in 10 weeks. And this isn't surprising in some way, because there are such innovative brands out there who are able to do this and are those challenger brands. So the established brands in the markets have had to react pretty quickly, because challenger brands are kind of stepping on their toes because they're digital ready, they're digital first, they're digital native, they understand their consumer data, and they're ready to kind of pounce as well. So I just wanted to look at 7 brands I think are kind of getting it right at this stage. And they're not getting it right across their whole strategy, but I just wanted to pick out elements that I've seen that I think they're doing pretty well with. You can, in the chat later, tell me that no, these guys are dreadful. But yeah, it's a conversation point anyway. So I wanted to look at Best Buy, and the reason why I kind of Best Buy, obviously a well-established brand across lots of different kind of states as well, multiple big retail shed as well. But where they're looking at here is this kind of contactless curbside pickup. Best Buy and a few of the other brands were one of the first to kind of launch with these kind of operations, as well as this kind of find local approach as well. You can see here I've picked out this nearest store. Best Buy are very good at knowing where your location is, where you are sat to, and trying to drive you to the easiest way to go and get those goods. So this operating model where they've been able to adjust pretty quickly and move to this has been commendable. And again, they've had some positive feedback on social for this as well. Next up, I just want to show a couple of different kind of sportswear brands as well. There's different approaches to getting it right. There's that kind of approach where you can still be trading. And then there's the approach for this kind of content approach. So Columbia, again, outdoor brand here. We've got Rei, R-E-I, whoever that is as well, looking at these different kind of ways of bringing to the effect to the consumer. So whether it's a content approach, like the Columbia little video there we had, ways to kind of go on and get outdoors. Rye as well, looking with the COVID-19 update, giving content approach to campaigns as well, ways to kind of enjoy things with your family and just be on brand and relevant. We haven't been able to sell during this period. What we can do as brands is give really interesting content to our user base to try and build that conversation. And brands like Columbia, REI have done that as well. Don't know if you guys have seen this brand. It's one of my my UK friends actually who is is. So these guys who have been a constant kind of online retailer, I believe they now sell in Target as well. Yeah, these brands have got that kind of digital first mentality. And this is where they're reliant on things like customer feedback, customer sentiment to really drive their strategy. So looking at bringing Instagram to the fore, bringing ratings and reviews, they use this across all of their outbound marketing that they do to get that kind of genuine thought and interest about their product sets as well. So again, a nice little brand if you want to check them out as a kind of a challenger brand to an established kind of marketplace where you would normally go to your local Walmart and pick up a toothbrush, for instance. From a content approach as well, we've got Airbnb on the left-hand side. Obviously, Airbnb have been tremendously affected because the network obviously not being able to kind of open up and support this kind of independent new kind of way of working where we can all go and stay and travel to where destinations that we want and stay in other people's homes. So Airbnb have been going on that very content heavy led approach where they're giving people screensavers or just Instagram content or just funny, amusing content to get people through that time of COVID as well. So brands who haven't been able to really be there are trying to have that kind of empathetic approach, as we mentioned before. Again, Nordstrom, from a retail perspective, can you bring my online purchase out to my car? Yes. I thought a nice creative execution of how they've done this, conversational wise, and they've got some kind of trending products also in their email newsletters here as well. And then finally, I think I've just focused on kind of Macy's here as well. This kind of content approach, probably a little bit earlier in COVID, transforming your working from home solution. Some of these essential retailers have been able to trade throughout this time. So I've had a bit of a head start on traditional kind of retail as well. So yeah, definitely take a little look at some of the brands who have been able to trade through COVID because they've gone through a few of these peaks a little bit earlier than some of the later retailers who have got back to marketing around mid-May for the Americas, I believe, as well. So what's happening now, you're going to tell me. So yeah, so we're moving from this kind of closed to kind of open world again. And I know your lockdowns have come a little bit sooner than this side of the Atlantic as well. So you've got some experience from this as a consumer about what's happening. What we're seeing here in the UK market anyway, is that consumers will only visit on average 10.4 retail outlets in a month. So that's quite crazy. That means that I will only go into 10 different shops in a whole month period in a physical way. So that means that users are making less trips. They're doing it when they are making a trip, they're doing things in one go. They're being very selective about the retailers that they want to go and visit. So would that be, I need some more garden equipment for my outside, or I want to brighten up my garden. Things like this are things where customers are now thinking about what is essential and why, as marketers, should you be one of their 10 trips that they're going to make to a physical offline store in a month. So we've got to think about that as part of our strategy about how to bring people back into our kind of offline stores. And I'll show you some examples of this later and everything moving from there as well. Next up, obviously, you've got this as well, this kind of stand your distance, socially distance, be safe. These measures have come in across our different network of activity. So again, this is something we all have to consider at this time around how do we adapt our in-store presence to obviously this new kind of social norm, whether it be 2 meters, whether it be 1 meter. Again, people take a consumer. This was me a few weeks ago. I have gladly now got a haircut, which is quite useful. But yeah, people are obviously socially distanced. They're making very infrequent store visits. They're adhering to kind of personal protection guidelines, and they're making kind of essential jobs as well. Where they can, they're utilizing click and collect if possible, and they're using these services to kind of reduce their time in store and kind of get in, get out kind of mode. And this was me obviously in need of kind of a haircut as well back then, but then my wife kindly did that. I know you guys have got salons and things that have reopened. I'm really jealous of that. Your side of the Atlantic, if you've managed to take advantage of those type of things. So this is where we're coming to now. And yeah, this is just a kind of an interesting world where we obviously have these typical kind of stop signs and crosswalks and all of these different types of things, but we used to be together and now we're actively being told to move apart. And I just think this is quite a stark reminder of where we are today. And we've got to think that how does this affect us as consumers and as brands as well. And I just thought I'd take some US Google search trend data as well. It's a great reference point for individual state information as well. So there were some questions from you guys around how can I market when I've got different consumers in different states with different lockdown rules. Have a little look at Google search trends for certain markets and certain states as well, because you can really see what sentiment is happening. I've just taken some of the key ones here for coronavirus, weather, news, music, and sport, just to see what's happening during this time. And actually, you can see here that on the 8th of May, I think it was in the US, people started stopping to talk around coronavirus and asking more about what the weather was going to be. So customers are kind of getting into that way of they really want this to end and they want to be able to enjoy the outdoors again and get back to some form of normality. And again, on the bottom graph, you can see when will lockdown end, when will coronavirus end? And you guys were a lot more ahead of the UK market than this. So you were kind of end of April, you were looking to say, when can we get out of this? Whereas, let's say in our market, it was much more kind of end of May for this as well. So have a little look at search trend data. Here's just a kind of a few that you can take a little look at and how this will affect different markets as well. So the crux of what we really want to get on to today is how will businesses win in this post-COVID-19 world? And hopefully this is the stuff that you guys are kind of interested in and being here today. So what we're advocating here at Mapp is that strategies that you do now need to fit a yo-yo consumer landscape. We cannot be certain that that first peak in end of March was it. There could be a second peak. We've seen with Florida, we've seen in the latest news in the last couple of days, the trend is starting to rise again of COVID cases. So brands need to be prepared for whatever they do now, to be aware that there could be this kind of yo-yo consumer landscape. And it could also be very localized because obviously you're a big territory. There is lots of markets and lots of different ways that this could be affected. So it could be different pockets of states that are affected more than others, and that will change their local governance as well. So here, I believe are kind of 3 tactics to fundamental brand success going forwards from this point on. And the first one is the ability to segment your users based upon COVID behavior. So what has happened is actually, I think some of the stats out there are saying that 25% of users have discovered a new brand that they have never traditionally shopped with online during that time with COVID. And I can think about that from a personal perspective. I started buying line. I always went to my supermarket and picked up my spirits to make some cocktails, whatever it may be. But now I've done that on a kind of an online journey. But have I decided now post-COVID, if we say we're in a kind of post-COVID world, will I go back to buying my spirits in the supermarket? Will I continue to buy it online? I had a great experience. They were very quick to deliver. They gave me a free gift, I think, in there as well. They had a very good service. But I'm still undecided as a consumer as to whether I will go back to physical offline shopping or online shopping or a hybrid of the two. So if I'm undecided as a consumer, then there is an opportunity there for the brand to sway me in a certain way. If that online brand gave me a 15% off discount coupon on all gin, let's say, or rum, I might be all over that and go, yeah, actually, I'm back. I'm now going to start to become more of a loyal user. But the key thing really here is identification. So can you identify those users who have come to you and started using your brand or your service during COVID times? And also, quite importantly, who are those users who would have continued to be really loyal to you, but couldn't be loyal to you because of their means, basically because of their change in circumstances due to COVID? Let's say in February, you had someone who regularly purchased with you. They haven't had the luxury or the money to be able to do that during these last few months. They may have found themselves unemployed or without a different change in circumstance. So if that is the case, maybe once they're coming out and maybe furlough schemes are ending and they're coming back to their jobs, they can be brand loyal again. So we have to remind those users who were pre-COVID and big advocates for us, we're still here, we feel your pain, what can we do about getting you back on board with X brand? So just a few things that to really think about there. As we can do that, as we can segment our data, hopefully, and look into those kind of consumer behavior patterns, can we personalize those comms? And personalization doesn't just mean put Josh in the subject line of your emails, for instance. Can we make it personalized to me about my journey that I want to take? Do I want to be a click and collect consumer? Do I want to be an offline store, go into offline stores? Do I want to continue my online experience with you? Do I want to shop local, for instance, as well? So these are just different ways that you guys should look at this as well. And what we are finding as well, using that data-led insights to react and adapt your business strategy. So decision-making within businesses have been based upon that consumer feedback and sentiment. And this will continue, it should continue. It's been really positive for a lot of brands. They've become much more nimble, much more agile. And agile is just a huge word that is happening across all businesses from C-level right down at the moment. So this kind of agile effect. So if you've got your handle on the data and you can react, then you should be able to make strong marketing decisions and bring that through as well. And also understanding all the fundamental chain, like supply chain activity. So if you can really do that and you understand where there are gaps in supply chain, and just communicate those gaps in supply chain if there is a problem, or starting to look as kind of a term here in the UK around kind of nearshoring rather than offshoring, where before we might have given a lot of activity out to China for manufacturing processes. People are starting to bring some of that a lot more closer to the European shores. And you might see this in the US as well. They're bringing their manufacturing activity nearer to where they're actually selling their goods, because that doesn't have such a long-term supply chain hit as before as well. And you can see this in Amazon actually as well. They're doing a lot of activity to try and promote their own goods that are not so reliant on external markets, but that's a decision for another day as well. So yeah, this is just going to look at these a little bit more. So segment your users based upon COVID behavior, similar to kind of track and trace schemes that have been happening around the globe as well. You have to be able to join those online customers to Marcom's tools. I'm going to reiterate this one because I think it's so important. Can you join your email address and your online behavior? That might be your cookie data, that might be their web interaction data. And can you bring that into your marketing tool, whether that be your email provider, whether that be your mobile push provider, whether that be your SMS, or whether that provider is all one provider itself. If you can't tie up their, let's say their e-commerce purchases, their online behavior and their email address, it's very hard to know where that consumer is with your brand. So these are the types of things that are really key at this point as well. So try and identify those users. And if you can, your proprietary data online is your data advantage. It's not Google, it's not Facebook's, it is your brand data. So if you can own your first party data, and I mean truly own it, then you will be able to go and react and do your kind of communications accordingly. That's fun. And then what you do on this, flick through this, I realize we're about 40 minutes in, so I want to have some time for Q&A. But yeah, what you should be able to do is look into your data sets if you can, through your analytics tools and web tools, and try and see how users have changed. How are they becoming loyal? How are they promising? How are they drifting? Once they're starting to drift away from your brand, have they drifted because of that COVID experience, because they haven't been able to buy with your brand because of their circumstance? How can we market to them to try and get them back? How can we really understand where the customer is in their journey with you guys as well? How has their behavior changed? And that's like channel behavior as well. Not all channels, and this is marketing channels, have the same desire or the same way of working. Not every channel is a converting channel. Some channels like Pinterest or Instagram, for instance, can be quite inspirational for brands. How has that changed? Have users with more time been able to look at more longer content forms, come through those means and start discovering your brand in a different way? These are all these kind of key metrics as well. How have my engaged users changed? Because if my engaged users week on week are on this constant decline, that might say in 2 weeks' time that we are going to have a big issue about hitting our Q3 target or July target or monthly sales target. If we can identify these things now, we can maybe do something about it. Could we pump a little bit more money into our acquisition program? Could we do a win-back campaign on email? You've got to really understand where your business is at this time. And you can only really see that through the data points as well. Just taking a little piece out here around kind of just a few kind of key quotes as well. Just looking at how Amazon obviously have accounted for 1/3 of all e-commerce sales times during COVID, which again is a scary number. Supply chain, trust, all of these types of things as well. And then they've also seen from Walmart, again, this new normal approach of looking at how users are embracing that kind of online pickup, online delivery, smart scanning apps. This technological change has affected all generations as well. So those over 65s who typically wouldn't maybe have done this have been forced to use this behavior. And a lot of the CEOs of this world, whether it be Walmart CEO Doug McMillon, or whether it be UK CEO of Sainsbury's like Mike Coop, they're saying that they believe that this is here to stay. So this is part of the new normal, this digital transformation, and we've got to get with that across our brands as well. And what has COVID done? It has changed the way that we interact with brands and communication and content. So this is a typical graph that you might have looked at as marketers a couple of years ago and gone, okay, I realized that, I don't know, Wednesday evenings, 6 p.m., we send our emails, we get a great response. However, we need to relook at this data because COVID has really changed how users are interacting. We've seen it in the UK with a large, about 8 to 10 million people on furlough job schemes as well. We've seen a lot of people browsing content between 3 and 4 in the afternoon. This is the type of time, some things have seismically shifted on certain days. Weekends also become like a weekday, because if you haven't been working, it's just the same day, right? So we've got to relook at where our customers are and what that means. Weekend, weekday, time, all these type of things. So look at this across all your different channels about when your websites are getting more hits. And it might really surprise you that it could be a completely different seismic shift from where you were before as well. And then this is just saying that can you also kind of suppress those more expensive channels, maybe your PPC ads or your Facebook campaigns where you've been paying a high cost per thousand to get these users back. Maybe you could be using your first party data a little bit more to try and get those users and suppress them on different channels. So many times retailers and different users are paying for that same customer again when they shouldn't or don't need to be doing because they've already got them in their database. And communicate in a slightly different way. So it's really about understanding these users and doing that again. Just some examples again, visit local. These are real-time kind of nearest store locators that can now come into email or could kind of pop up on site. Also, this example here from Homebase or your kind of Home Depot kind of equivalent. What we're doing at the moment from this perspective is really surfacing information to customers. We don't land them on the site, get them to go through a journey of checking their nearest stock just to find out that it's not available in their local store. It's painful, it's a horrible customer experience. What we're doing now is being much more transparent about where we are. Yes, there's a delivery cost, we're being upfront about it. Yes, we know it's going to take some time. This grab was taken just prior to lockdown, so now stores are open. And now we have this hybrid approach of stores, delivery, and customers can really see if it is available to them. If we can empower customers to really understand where they are in the buying cycle and not treat everyone like, oh, we are happy to get your click, but we're not happy to get your conversion. It's kind of it's a strange phenomenon that we're on. If we can give them the information, yes, we might have less click-throughs on email, but we've got the right people coming onto the site who then go and make a conversion. Higher conversion rates, better revenues, you'll know the drill. So this is just something to have a little look at. Can you embrace technology? We've got here kind of real-time social proofing there, how many people are browsing it now, and bringing through that information. If you guys have it as retailers and can share it and can bring it to the fore, your customer experience will go to another level. And you'll see people using this as a way to go and buy and purchase products as well. And finally, this kind of use data-led insight approach. So looking at the users who are on site and where they are in the funnel and how that funnel has changed. So here we've got some examples. This is actually from our Mapp intelligence dashboards here, but we really understand where they are on the kind of how many people are coming to site, how many have got through that next step, gone on to product views, add to basket, and then conversion. If you know how this is changing on a weekly basis for your brand, and you know where the drop-offs are in the funnel, then you can really do something about it. You can pump more people in at the top, you could optimize on site in between. And if you don't really know where your users are, then it's a bit guesswork to understand these different factors as well. Yeah, so this is really important, again, to understand where they are in those points. And if they are dropping off in a certain way, could we communicate to them better to try and convert them as well? So a few different things that we could look at here. Can you align your whole business, all your agencies that you work with? Can you align your C-suite execs? Can we, at this time, get them onto the same digital KPIs? This is important because every single time that we have a marketing meeting with my brands and previously, everyone would come with their own KPIs and say, yeah, we've been achieving this, we've been doing this, we've been doing that. But it doesn't really impact and doesn't really show what that single customer has been looking at. If I've been retargeted and I've had a 1,000% increase on my retargeting ROIs or whatever it may be, that might have had a complete negation on abandonment, I don't know, retargeting methods through email. So that might have dropped off completely, but actually what we've done is we've just paid a huge CPC to get these people back when we could have got them organically via this other channel. So these are the type of questions we need to be asking ourselves. Can we align people at this time, especially with businesses being agile, getting them onto the same KPIs as well? How important are these new customers? I mentioned that earlier. What is their return rate? What's the average days between visit? These are the type of KPIs that you guys should be using now. And if you can get your handle on this data, then you can really kind of do something about it. Again, just some grabs from intelligence, but yeah, the key thing here is really focusing on return rate, look at repeat order rates, look at this for your newly acquired customers versus long-standing. How does this all change as a result? Looking at the next one, we just moved on to this kind of campaign fluctuation. So how have our traffic sources maybe changed due to COVID? We're getting a lot more inbound referral URLs through an affiliate, for instance. How are we looking at this? How are we amending our journey? Are we bringing those people who are coming in from this new source, or people who are coming here in a much higher propensity? Are we giving them a tailored custom journey? If they're coming in from social more, are we tailoring their experience to that effect as well? Are we showing recommendations, reviews, more consumer insight and authenticity to them, because that might be the type of content that they're looking for to make that purchase? Next up, we have this kind of review, add to cart rates, abandonment tactics. These are big business drivers in terms of revenues as well. So look at those campaigns, look at your tactics, look at the product recommendations that go alongside that. Again, things that we can be looking at. Also look at what the consumer touch points are. So what channels are doing different areas for different products as well. So every website will probably sell more than one thing. And if you are, then you really do need to analyze for different categories how that changes per channel. Let's say that big Home Depot example, they might be selling kitchens, bathrooms, garden, homeware, paint, for instance. These are very different buying cycles. Paint might be a 1 day buying cycle. I need to get some white paint to do whatever for my building job. I need it now. I need to go and get that thing. Whereas if I'm going to buy a kitchen, it can be a 6, 9 months, even 18 months process. So we've got to understand what channels are doing in each different role as well. So I'm going to wrap it up. I'm coming to the end of the kind of timings here. So I'm just thinking today, remember that any of your tactics and technology decisions that you're making at this time need to fit this yo-yo consumer landscape. So again, you need to be able to flip back, but doing segmentation now isn't going to be a bad thing for when COVID ends. It's not going to be a bad time if COVID comes back. So this is the type of approach that as a Mapp would kind of advocate for. And as I said, there's a couple of takeaways that you guys can take away from here, and hopefully they'll be really useful. Mapp itself for a B2B business. So we've had to change our way that we market to our customers, right? So we're doing the same thing. We're doing more of these type of webinars, and we're really good at, and hopefully you're enjoying the content that we're sharing. But we've also gone and said, okay, we've got a lot of insight on what people and customers should be doing and marketers want to be doing at this time. Here you go, guys. This playbook is a way that you can get 100 insights. It's a fully interactive tool. You can build out all of your different kind of tactics and strategies. You can see the different efforts that are involved, time, effort, cost, and you can take that to your C-suite or go through this with them and just take that as a kind of a digital strategy and say, are we doing X, Y, and Z at a tactic level? So this is a free tool, simple registration, nothing that you have to be committed to. So I really would implore you guys to take a little look at this, download the PDF, look at all the tactics as well. There could be things that you're missing in your strategies as well. Everything in there has this kind of expert tips and things that you can have a little look at. It's a real sense of community. So you can add your own tactics, you can make them public or you can keep them private. And you can really build your own kind of marketing strategy playlist out here as well. And this could be something that you can refer to over the next number of months as well. So yeah, definitely refer to that one. And finally, if there's any agency partners as well, I know there are some agencies as well as brands on here. We do work with people like Brearley across the US as well, but we do work with quite a lot of big media networks from lead generation, those type of things, as well as reselling the Mapp Cloud technology as well. So again, there is always a reason to get in touch with us as well. And then finally, the obligatory one slide on kind of who we are and what we're made of. So Mapp is this kind of Mapp Cloud approach. And we have 4 different distinct areas. We have our Mapp Engage tool for engaging with customers through email, SMS, mobile push, all the kind of automations, journey whiteboard segmentation, and bringing all of that first-party data together. So that could be your e-commerce transactions. It could be from a Magento. It could be from a Shopify. We bring all of that in against your PII, your personal data, all of your click intent and start really understanding customers and executing. We've got our Acquire tool, which is an on-site data management platform, again, streaming in all of that data from all of that on-site activity and using that to start journeys, whether that be abandonment, whether that be category triggers, you'll see that in the playbook, or we also push that out to third-party media, whether that be GDN or Facebook to start media ad buying and maybe do some of those efficiencies. We have the intelligence tool, which I've shown you a few slides out of today, but again, that gives us the insights, hopefully, as to what's happening across our brand. And we can really filter that down into the segments and different strategies. And then we can go and action that data into a Mapp Engage, which is really exciting for us. And then we've also got our e-commerce plus tool, which is some more of those behavioral aspects. So that tool really focuses on recommendations in real time, cross-sells, a bit of AI in there, reviews, post-purchase, price drops back in stocks, abandonments as well. So yeah, this is a bit of what we're made up of. I know you guys will all be on different technology stacks, but if this has been interesting, then obviously there's a way to get in touch, and I'm sure our teams will as well. And obviously we're across the globe as well. So we're based out of San Diego as our business. And then we also are located across the globe. I'm out of our UK London office, but yeah, lots of different customers and recognizable names that you will recognize. And here's just a few from our retail slide that I just put up as well. Again, more European centric, but again, we do operate fully across your markets as well. And that's it from me.
Great stuff, Josh. Huge amount of content covered there. I really enjoyed that presentation. Maybe you want to go ahead and stop sharing your screen and then we can move into questions. Now, we've had some great questions coming in. I'm going to go through them one by one, starting with Alina. I'm going to kick off with a couple of questions myself, but perhaps Alina, if you're ready, you're going to be first up if you want to be ready for video and audio to ask your question. So Josh, going back to one of your earlier slides, you showed the growth of e-com as a portion of the retail space, going from 11% to 22% in that April to May timeframe. Now that's not a huge surprise to anyone, but given the current circumstances. But can you just give a bit of insight into A, if you think that trend is going to increase or is it going to flatten out, and B, what brands can do to kind of not only retain those new customers, whether they're in that 65 plus demographic, but also, look to those who haven't transitioned are maybe more likely to transition in the coming months. Yeah,
I think, let's say, it's going to be very hard to predict across, especially a geography like the Americas, how it's going to independently play out. Like I say, there probably will be a tempering back to that in-store way, but people are predicting that kind of 17, 18% of kind of overall economic spend might be done via the online means. So there will be a temperance back because certain people will want to go back. And I think consumers of that nature are very social, right? We want to be out there. We want to be speaking to our friends. We enjoy going to visit our offline stores. So that's not going to change, I don't believe. Obviously, certain businesses will struggle to be around. So there are challenges to these things. But I think that key approach really as to how you can win with this going forwards is that kind of segmentation piece I mentioned earlier, that real identification. If you can identify these users who have been either new to you because they've been forced to be new to you, because they've had to go and get, let's say, essential food, because they haven't been able to visit their local stores, or they've been shielding, like there is an opportunity to potentially try and get these people to be more long-term advocates. Could we do something over the next 3 months, which maybe is like a small loyalty scheme for them, which says shop 2 more times, 3 more times, and you get X, Y, and Z. Make it habitual, and or even just recognize and say as a brand, oh, we really appreciate that you've been able to shop with us during these times. That's not a giveaway as a brand, but it's such a nice sentiment to receive because it shows that you as a brand have acknowledged them, that they've changed their behavior and now shop with you. These kind of things really resonate. And brands who are empathetic like that, I think, have that more genuine approach will survive in the long time. So that's just a few things that I would pick up on.
Got it. And then just one last question for me before I open it up to the questions from the audience. We've seen over the certainly last 18 months, like the proliferation of AI modeling. Now, clearly, consumer behavior has shifted so vastly in these last 2 months, or 3 months rather. How do you see that impacting how AI modeling, copes with that, with what is a very rare and significant event in change in consumer behavior?
Yeah, well, so AI is an interesting one. I think we're going to have to dial down the timeframes that we're looking back to compare. So I think we're quite fortunate in some of like that social proof stuff that I was showing is kind of real data. It's 7 days. We can go back with 3 hours or trending or last 7 days. And that interacts with our models for what recommendations we should serve to them as well. So our AI models for that activity aren't so like long-term, which I think is beneficial. There are some e-commerce black boxes out there who I don't fully know all of what they do, to say you pay us $5,000 a month and we're going to get you 50, right? But I don't know what goes behind on the scenes. I don't think anyone really does. So I think it really depends what type of AI. What we have been able to do, let's say on some of the Mapp tools, it might not be the biggest AI tools in the world, but we have things like best send out time, which is based upon, let's say, the last four weeks of their email engagement. So that has been able to shift according to how they've been reacting within kind of COVID times. So like things like best send out time, recommendations trending, some of the AI modules and predictive modules within intelligence are quite interesting because you can set your kind of barometers of what's normal and what's not out of normal. And it will kind of smart alert you when something's kind of falling out of those kind of median brackets that you are not quite sure on. So, and that could then be a predictive element. So there are tools that say, okay, this customer, because they've just started joining us now, following the crowds of X, Y, and Z and their interactions online should be going to be worth X, Y, and Z in the future. And then can we go and obtain more people like this based upon what we predict for them to be their future spend? So I think you've got to look at it very carefully with AI, but use careful bits of it to bring that into your strategy because it is important. The technology can do sometimes much more number crunching than a human can. So we've got to use it wisely, but not get kind of reliant on it because it could just not be valid, I guess.
Got it. Well, great. So I'm going to now go through these questions from the attendees. Alina from PepsiCo, I hope you're still here. If you are, you can turn on your video and unmute yourself and ask the question. But if not, I will go ahead and ask that question. Yeah. So any thoughts on how to communicate to consumers regarding restaurants and the hospitality industry reopening?
Yeah, it's a tough one, I think. So it depends upon the social distancing practices that you have. Like we just had in the UK, July the 4th, we're starting to open up our pubs and restaurants. It's something that is obviously very dear to a lot of us in the UK market. So it depends upon the social distancing. I think you've got to communicate firstly what efforts you have done to look at the social distancing rules that are in place, whether that be PPE on protective servers, whether that be ordering via smartphones and devices rather than having to go to till. Would it be things like digital receipts? So you don't have to have that physical paper copy. There's been some digital transformation that we've got there as well. So I would look at those type of things in that sector. Obviously, if you have outdoor space, again, really rely upon the fact that you're outdoors, less transmission, and just make it kind of a community led. So say you can be quite honest that it's been a tough time for everyone. If you're a smaller SME, for instance, in those type of spaces, it's been a tough time. So they're really reliant on you booking local. So if you could tap into your local community, whether that be through local Facebook ads or local kind of email rollouts or whatever your tools and data allows you to do, just like implore upon that real local need to be here and say, look, we're finally able to reopen. These are the measures we've taken. We really need you back here. Otherwise, let's be honest, we might not be here in the future. And that resonance will normally bring back your regulars pretty quickly, and maybe bring you new people because they feel for you and they want to try and learn that experience.
Great. Thanks, Josh. Okay, moving on to our next question from Kerry Singleton from Henkel. Kerry, you can jump in at any point to ask the question, but I'll go ahead and ask it. With the increase of e-commerce purchasing, are we seeing trends about the increased packaging waste? I see some larger e-tailers are launching new padded mailer packaging. What trends are you seeing in this area?
Yeah, I probably haven't seen anything regarding packaging size, even though it's a definite area of interest, depending what business you're on. We've used our intelligence tool for like Postal Bank, which is like a FedEx equivalent in Germany, to really understand what kind of packaging sizes are required for certain items that they're kind of shipping or all of these different things. And actually, they've been able to kind of change their approach to what consumers need based upon the insights that have been given, because they had different packaging that they had as well. So like different sizes that weren't available were commonly being requested. So what we think might be needed is not what the industry needs. From your perspective on the question. I probably went on a bit of a tangent there, but in terms of the packaging itself, I think packaging is a real opportunity to engage. And Pepsi, who are on the call as well, my client over here, we do some really interesting on-pack promotional activity, driving to digital activations. You've got some real estate there to really utilize, to either do some form of data capture, some form of lead gen, some form of testimonials, some form of personalized experience. There are lots of things that we can do there. So yeah, personalized packaging, different packaging forms, obviously packaging waste, ethical marketing, like kind of viable green marketing. All of these types of things are very prevalent in the market at the moment. So being that type of forefront brand to go and make those changes, I think is only a positive thing, and you'll get kind of resonance for that. But yeah, look at what you can do with the vehicles that you've got and see everything as a potential customer touch point, which it is, and maybe a way to obtain or grow or create some form of loyalty. So yeah, I can't talk to padded packaging. I can only assume it'd be good for less breakage. But yeah, all good.
Great. Thanks, Josh. I'm aware that we're slightly overrunning on time, but let's try and get through 2 or 3 more of these questions. So Cara from Atomo Coffee. With COVID and Black Lives Matter now being very big social issues, especially being in downtown Seattle, like Atomo Coffee are, how do you suggest being sensitive to these topics while also continuing to create content for our brand?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. Like I say, politicalizing things at this moment can be very polarizing, as we've seen. Even brands that have come in with statements and are then being very highly scrutinized of their back-end financial transactions to Republican parties. Like there's all of this happening. So you've got to be very careful. And I think as SMEs, we're pretty more able to kind of promote ourselves as that kind of responsible neighborhood type brand, whereas the brands which are more corporate and global across a lot of different entities have a bigger challenge to kind of have. So whether they should be 2 feet in, being very public about their stance as a business, or whether you should just kind of come back, rely on your core values. Yeah, it's a minefield, I think. But I think from the Seattle question, I would focus again to go to your community, go to your local areas, really look at what your loyalty scheme means. I'm sure, yeah, again, just trying to build on that local community would be the best thing to do, and then really trade off that. And yeah, it's a tricky one. It's a real tricky one. I don't really want to jump too much further than that, to be honest.
Great, thanks, Josh. Okay, so moving on to Julia from Kraft Heinz. Curious to what you think about brands resuming experiential events in person. And clearly, as an event organizer ourselves, certainly curious about that as well.
Yeah, I think, like I say, there has been this kind of shift to online for such webinars like this, which have been really successful at gaining maybe wider attendance than possible and working into busy schedules. And there's definitely been some engagement factor there. But everyone really does like that kind of camaraderie, face-to-face activity, experiential activity as well. So again, anything that we are going to be providing, we have things like, I don't know, gift cards and experiences like track days and whatever it may be, wine tasting, all these different types of events. People do want to do those things again, but again, it's going to start up a little bit slower. So I guess you have to lean on the ones that can be a little bit more or work towards a socially distanced way, and look at, again, from like, imagine yourselves as a retail business, like a hospitality business, or just opening up in that way. The same type of tactics would be appropriate for an experiential thing where you have to really align that we are ready, we are safe, we're open, and this is the way that we will help you through that experience, and you can still do great things in lockdown. I would probably position it from that experience or coming out of lockdown. Great,
thanks, Josh. Okay, so Yulri from Pyology, what was the number of store visits per month statistic prior to COVID, and where did you pull that data?
Yeah, so that was a UK report. It was on a pretty it's part of a retail package. I don't think I can share that live stat from where it was, because it was yeah, it's a paid for resource from a brand of mine, let's say. I've given you the stat today, but yeah, it's basically one of those type of Gartner type reports for retailers, for retail set, looking at averages across, I think it was UK and Europe. So it may be a little bit different, but I think the sentiment is correct that people are being very choosy about what they're doing. So it might not be 10, it could be 13, but you still need to position your brand as one of those 13 if you want to get back to the offline world. So don't, like I say, with all things, you've got to take a little bit of pinch of salt, but that one was a bit UK centric and European market focused. But I think the same resonancy is still there across the globe. And when I speak to my American colleagues, they're saying exactly that as well, kind of testimonially.
Great, thanks, Josh. Let's just do one final question before we wrap it up. So, Joanna from Marchon, do you have any thoughts on how to engage with customers in the eyewear industry, especially since this industry has sanitary concerns with customers trying on the same frames in store during the pandemic, for example?
Yeah, again, it comes back to those hygiene methods on in-store repetition. So cleaning, all that type of stuff, which you will be doing naturally. You have to give that consumer confidence that you would be there for your particular brand. I also think, again, there might be a way of, I don't know, using technology here, like kind of blipper apps and all of these different types of things, just to be able to envisage what things will look like without needing to try things on. Maybe there's a technological solution as well. There's a company that's out there, you might have a US equivalent, but something called Go In Store, which again is a nice little technology piece that's happened during COVID, which allows brands to go to a retailer, like to a user who's sat in store, and actually show them products through like pop-ups as well from a virtual way. So there are lots of different technology solutions out there which might help that in-store experience without even needing to be there. If you are in store and you have, like, say, that eyewear, then again, it's all just about making it very easy for hand sanitization, wipes, all that type of stuff, just being very clear, labeled stations. So again, that consumers feel confident that they can come in, have that same experience, and just be become experts again in that field that you guys are.
Fantastic. Well, I know there's a few more questions, but I'm conscious we've run 10 minutes over, so I think we will call it time there. Big thanks to Josh. Covered an awful lot of content there. Great answering of those questions. But really, thanks to everyone else for joining us. We will be back. We have lots of masterclasses coming up later this year, but a big thanks to Josh and all the Mapp team, and hopefully see you again at a future masterclass. Maybe we could just click gallery view quickly so we can turn videos on and just give each other a quick wave goodbye. I don't know how many people are willing to turn their videos on, but just a quick wave goodbye to thanks for your time, and thanks for your participation in this event. Thanks again to Josh for talking for almost, well, more than an hour. I think quite impressive. So certainly I struggle to talk for that long, but excuse me. Thanks again to Josh and his team, and thanks to everyone. See you again soon.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you.